Hey all, this is Jeb Sherrill with the Musical Chair System. I had to interrupt last week's episode because it just ran way too long, so I cut it in half. And we were talking about fives. So since last week we went over the chord, the A5, this week I'm going to go a little more into how to improvise using the notes from the fives. So, back to where I left off last week. The reason I'm showing you this is because you can do it within one chair, but as you learn the chairs going down here and then the chairs that are going down here and the chairs that are going down here, you'll find that you can make any kind of chord. Not just the fives. They're just the easy ones. Now, what this will also do for you is by knowing a root and a five, you can do that all through the chair when you're leading. So for instance, and this is where, again, this is where the circle of fifths kind of comes in. If you are playing along a chord progression, you're going to know that those chords are going to be associated with this chair. So all you have to do is, let's say that it starts on a G. Well, you know the first and the fifth. You also know the second. And remember, in our last lesson, we talked a little about improvising and how you could use just those three notes. So you can just move that exact same shape down to any note. And this way you can jump to whatever chord is in the chord progression and know, oh, that's my first, fifth, second. Another thing that's really cool about fifths is that there is always a fifth next to your root. There's always well, except here, of course, because you're on the low E string. But if we went down to this root, we would find there was a fifth right here. So you always know the fifth that's higher than your root, and you know the fifth that's lower than your root. And that can be incredibly useful. Look what you can do with just your root, your second, and both fifths. And you'll be able to do that anywhere. Just by jumping to those positions within the chair. So now you know that you can jump anywhere on the fretboard. So imagine we came down here and chose this to be our root. And you're doing the same thing that you're doing right here, you're just moving it down to different places because you can just choose any note, build that chair, know where all the other chairs are, and therefore know where your first, fifth, second. And the wonderful thing about that is that your first, your second, and your fifth are going to be the same in both major and minor. So for instance, if you were playing along a chord progression, you're jamming with some friends, and maybe you're not even sure if they're major or minor, but you just know the chords. Well, you can play this first, fifth, second, fifth, first, fifth, second, fifth, and make something out of that for any of the chords, and it doesn't matter if they're major or minor because those notes are going to work over either one. Now, if you haven't been trying to improvise before or lead over backing tracks, it might not be quite as obvious why that's so useful, but believe me, it saved my tail on a lot of occasions. In fact, a lot of times when I'm first trying out a new backing track, I may start out with those notes because those are just very, very easy notes. They're wild notes. They work with both major and minor, and I can figure stuff out from there. Maybe I'm not going to use my first, second, and fifth, I probably will. I often use that first, second, third, and fifth in a lot of pieces, but of course it's that third that is going to be different between your major and minors, and in a future lesson we're certainly going to go over that. So for the moment, all I want you to do is do the same thing you've been doing, and you're just going to fix in your head where the first, second, and fifth are. And you can either play them as single, or you can play them as chords. And I will see you on the next episode.